Hello everybody, welcome to the show. We are learning today how to make a gaze input timer. So that way when you look at an object, you will see a circle being made around it, and that will give you enough time to say, to decide whether or not you want to let that circle finish and then take you where it's going to take you, or if you want to move your mouse before that circle is full, and thereby saving you from going somewhere that you didn't want to go. Okay, in the very last episode, we made something very similar, but instead of having a timer attached to the script, we are just basically putting our action in a trigger that happens when we look away from the object. So we looked away and it activated an animation. All right, just a quick recap, all of that is kept right over here. So when the pointer enters, it activates a color change. When the pointer exits, it activates another color change, but it also enables a script called Descendify. The script Descendify is attached to the player, and it is normally disabled. So when you start, it's normally disabled. Now inside of that script, as soon as we make that enabled by looking outside, it begins this process. It loads an animator with a get component, and then it takes that get component and plays the animation. And of course that animation we are referring to is Descendify, because it will move our camera from one place to another. It's a simple animation, and that's how we activate it. Now, we don't actually have a circle to put around this yet, so we have to make one. So fortunately, we have some free programs that we could use. The first one is MS Paint, and then the next one is GIMP. So let's go ahead and start with Paint. Right here, I have a 200 by 200 pixel image started. We can change this to any size, but because I use 200 by 200 so often, it just opened as 200 by 200. So let's go ahead and grab these handles and move them out until our pixels. Right here you can see the pixels, and make sure it's 200 by 200. No, right there. Excellent. All right, so we're going to change the color of our image. We're going to make a circle, obviously some sort of ring, and then we're going to select the widest width, and holding down Shift, we will draw a circle. The reason we're holding down Shift is so that it keeps your basically it keeps your circle perfectly round. All right. Now, because we do have a perfectly circle and we have a perfectly square, we can stretch the circle to the edges of the square, and while it is oblong at the moment, when all the areas have been moved, we will have a perfectly circular circle in the middle of a perfectly square out to the edges. Excellent. Good job, guys. All right, so that's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and hit File and Save. We want to save it as a PNG, okay? PNG. There we go. We're going to call this the circle. Excellent. Save. All right, now we saved it as a PNG for a very specific reason. Let's go ahead and open up GIMP. Now, we need to be able to see through this object. Right now it has a white background, and we want it to have no background. So go ahead and take this image and drag it over to your workspace right here, and right-click on the circle. Okay, go down to Add Alpha Channel, and that will help us out a lot. We want to choose our fuzzy selector, and then we will click right in the fuzzy selector. There we go, and click right in the middle. Hit delete. Now you can see this checkerboard pattern behind it that lets you know that you are actually looking through an object. So click in the corner, delete, other corner, delete, this corner, delete, that corner, delete. Okay, now we have a transparent object with just the red ring remaining. We're going to go to File, and then overwrite the circle. And when we do that, you'll notice that our circle over here, all the white will disappear and we will be able to see through it. So overwrite. Boom. And there we go. All right, now we have a perfectly see-through circle that we can use as our reticle timer. Excellent job. All right, go ahead and close that image, disregard, and then close the program. All right, let's drag our circle down here to Unity. Now bring it up to Materials and drop it in there. Now, in order to use this, we need to make sure that we're not just using any normal image. Come here to Texture Type, and instead of Default, we want to choose Sprite. Okay, the sprite will allow it to preserve that transparency that we wanted. So hit Apply, and boom, you see all the background disappeared, and you can see through it again. And here you can actually see the alpha checker pattern indicating that it is a see-through image. So that's good. All right, good job, guys. But in order for us to use this, we need to attach it to our camera in some way. So we're going to go to Player, because our main camera is attached to our player, and when we're in virtual reality, by moving our main camera around, by moving our head around, we're moving our main camera. But our body stays in position because we are attached to player. And anytime we want all of everything to move, we will select player to do that. So we're going to go player, right-click on player, come down to UI, and add a canvas. All right. A canvas is just an empty graphical thing that allows you to put stuff on top of it. And what we want to do is we want to put this circle right here, but we need to first put it inside of something. So go UI, image. All right. Now we can put that circle inside the image. And the only reason we can put the circle inside the image is because it was turned into a sprite. So click on image, go to circle, drag it over here into source image. Boom. Now you can see it's visible over here. Good job. Now if we were to hit play, we'd be able to look around and we'd see that it is attached to our screen. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, now we can look around, but you will notice that we can no longer click on stuff. All right, the reason for that is because your canvas has a graphic raycaster, and that is blocking our ability to look at our sphere. So go ahead and disable that, and when we hit play again and try to look over here, we will see that, yep, it worked. As soon as we passed through it, it activated the animation. All right, good job. But that's not all. Click back on image again and come down here to where it says image type. Okay, by default it is set to simple, but we don't want simple, we want filled. And the reason for this is because it gives us a variable called fill amount. All right, and that fill amount, by changing that fill amount, we are actually changing how much of this circle is being shown. Okay, so it creates the illusion that this thing is growing when in reality it's just parts of a picture that are being chopped out and put back. All right, so very good. We'll go ahead and leave it like this. For now, you can change it. I like to put it on the top, so that way when, there we go, we get that indicator right away to let you know what we're doing. Okay, so I like it like that. Let's go ahead and leave it like this for right now and jump into our script, because it is important to do that. So I think everything's good for now. Go to player. The reason we are going to use this script is because it is what is pushing our animation. Okay, otherwise we would put it into a separate script, but we don't really want that. We want to be able to activate this animation. So right now when the animation starts, it's automatically calling the change spot and then running the animation that we have. We don't want that to happen. Okay, we want to abstract that, because right now it'll run, and we don't want it to run right away. We want it to run when we want it to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a public update, or public void, sorry, public void update, parentheses, and then brackety and brackety. Excellent. All right, but still, you're like, why did we put it in the update thing? Because now it's just going to call it every frame. And you are absolutely right, but what we need to do then is to make an if statement. And we can't make an if statement if we don't have a variable to manipulate. So let's go ahead and come up here to where we have our animator declared. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a public float, and we're going to call that my time. Now, it doesn't need to be public, but we are making it public for a reason. Okay, and we are also going to set it to 0f, so it is currently nothing. Okay, that's good. Let's come down here, and we're going to make an if statement. So if parentheses this, and then drag this in there. All right, now we have a, now we have an if statement. So if whatever happens in here happens, then we will change the spot, but not until then. So let's make a if my time is greater than or equal to 3 seconds, then go ahead and change the spot. Okay. But it's not going to climb. It's not going to do anything right away because it's just an if statement. We need a way to make my time equal 3f. And we don't want to do it all at once. So we're going to build a timer. And the easiest way to do that is not through wait for seconds. It's actually this way. So my time, okay, is plus equal to time dot delta time. Okay, and the reason we're choosing this is because my time at this point is still 0, and then we're adding time dot delta time, and this adds it adds seconds to this, but incrementally slowly, like really slow, like 0.01, 0.02, but well, in those small increments as opposed to add a second, add another, so it gives you some sort of delineation. Okay, now you're going to find out why we chose to make this my time. So we're going to save. Okay, we're going to come back here, and we are going to, come on, there we go. We're going to look at my time. Now, what we want to do is when we look over here, we want to see if, first of all, descendify activates, and then if my time changes value. But if we do that right now, nothing's going to happen because we need to change our event trigger. Now, this button right here called Pepito has an event trigger based on whether you are entering it or exiting it, and we don't want the code to trigger when you exit. Like, we did that in the last episode, that's great, but we don't need that right now. We need the code to start as soon as you look at the object, right? We need that timer to start. So add a plus to your enter, and then click on player. Add that, and then we are going to do the same thing we did down here. Descendify enabled. So descendify enabled. All right. Now you got to make sure this is checked. All right. If this is not checked, that means it's disabled. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and click on player so that we have our indicators here. And we're going to hit play, and we're going to look at the image. All right, it activated it. All right, so you saw that it was active and that the timer started running, but because we in Pepito down here said that when you look away, disable it, it became disabled and it stopped counting. That's good. That's good. We want that. But what we don't want is for when we continue to look at that object for that timer to keep building, okay? That timer is just going to keep building and building, and when it hits 3, it's going to do what it does, and we can't stop it. Or can we? Yes, we can. Let's go back into our area here, and what we want to do is reset stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to make another public void reset inator. All right, add our parentheses, add our curly brackets, and what we want to do here is say my time is equal to 0f. All right, and by doing that, it'll change the value back to 0 whenever we look outside. So go ahead and save. And of course, if we want this to happen, we have to go over to Pepito and tell it that we want it to happen. Okay, so right now, yes, it'll disable the descendify script, which is great because it'll make it stop counting, but it's not going to do anything to actually make it useful. So we're going to come down here, and on our exit, we're going to choose player, and we want to use the function that we just created called resetinator. And the reason we made it public is because if you don't make it public, you will not find it in here. All right, this is what allows you to use an object if it's public. Okay, so now let's check to see if everything is set up properly. So we've got our enter events, we've got our exit events. Everything looks pretty much the way it should. So let's go ahead and hit play and see what we got. All right, so we're going to go over here. It started, now it stopped. It started, now it stopped in 0. Started, stopped in 0. Perfect. Okay, good job, guys. Promise not much more to go here. Okay, so we've got the timer working. So we know that once it reaches 3 seconds, it'll do the thing that we want it to do. However, we want our thingy, our circle timer, to actually do something. Okay, so click on image, and we do have this right here, this thing that, you know, modifies our time, and it's called fill amount. Okay, so we need to find a way to change that fill amount. All right, so let's go down in here to our script. We have basically all of our time set up, but now we need to add some way to change that object. So we're going to go and make sure that we can use it. So by using Unity engine.ui, okay? If we don't add that in there, then we won't be able to modify the UI. So let's create a new public transform, because we're manipulating an object, we're transforming it, and we're going to call that radial progress. Okay, there we go. Now, we're going to go ahead and start by adding radial progress to the start. Radial progress dot get component, and we want to do image. There we go. Image parentheses dot fill amount. Remember, we have that fill amount that we can use. All right, so fill amount, and we want that to be equal to my time. Excellent. All right, now that we have that, it needs to be in some other places besides here. All right, so we're going to copy that. We're going to go down to our timer. Okay, if you notice, we have our timer here. Between our timer and our if statement, we want to make sure that we have our time changing the fill amount of the radial progress, okay? So now we have that, we're good. And then we also want to make sure that we have one down here in our resetinator. Excellent. Now let's go ahead and save this and run it and see what we got. All right. Before we run that, actually, we need to make sure we go to player. Okay, and if you notice, we made all those public variables. We have anime, and we have my time, and we have radial progress. We need to make sure that that transform has something to transform, and we want it to be the image. Okay, we want to transform the image. So click on that, choose image. Excellent, we did it. If you change the name of image, you'll have to make sure that you choose that name in here. Image is not some sort of like default, you know, whatever. It just happened to be the name of the object that we wanted. Okay, so we've got that. That's good. Let's hit play. And we're going to look over here. All right, excellent. So you'll notice it did the action, but that thing went by really quick. It just went real fast, and we don't want it to go that fast and then do nothing. We want it to go the same speed as what's going to happen. Now, look at your image right here. Your image can move between 0 and 1, okay? So it only has so much of a value. And you notice, well, let's talk about that first. So this is 0 to 1, so it only has a value of 1 of itself. When we go into our code right here, in our update, we are taking something that is going to be 3 seconds long, and we're only running a 1-second loop on it. So what we'll do is we'll go to my time divided by 3 and save that. And come back and play. All right. Come on. There we go. All right, nice and smooth, and when it gets to the end, triggers perfectly. Now, the one last thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that when we start our game, we don't have half of a thingy just chilling here, okay? Now, you would think, oh, why don't we just set it in the code so that it disappears? Well, we can't set it in the code because the code isn't actually activated until we look at this object. Okay, so what we're going to do is go over here to fill amount, and we're just going to 0 it out. Excellent. So we can't see it anymore. It's still there, but it's not going to automatically appear as soon as we start the thing. So now we can look at it. It appears. We look outside. It disappears, resets to 0, and then if we let it fill, then it makes the animation move. Excellent. So it's not that it's difficult to do, it's just that there's a lot of steps involved, and you got to make sure that, you know, things are always aligned properly. Like, you got to make sure that you put this radial progress, you got to make sure that your image gets in there. You got to make sure that your player animation has a place to go. You don't need my time to be public anymore, so you can disable the public thing and it'll still work just fine. But if you wanted to be able to test it to see whether the numbers are moving properly, that's where you would go. Okay, and so we made sure that we did transparency, we manipulated the fill amount, everything is pretty good. Even down here, got to make sure you get all of your triggers right. So remember, if it is checked, if a Boolean enabled is checked, that means it's true. If a Boolean unchecked is unchecked, then it means it's false, or it means it's disabled, whatever you want to say. Okay, and then of course, if you need to access any of the subroutines that you made inside of your code, you need to make sure you call them public. Like right now, I can access update if I want to. I don't need to access update because I am accessing it as soon as I enable this, okay? So I could probably just call it a private update or just a regular update without a qualifier at all, and it'll stop appearing in here, which is just fine because we don't need to actually access it so closely. You know, we don't have to put our fingers in it, if you will. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this one. I really thank you guys for watching, and I hope that this has been informative. I have been looking for something like this for quite a while, and it's been really hard for me to understand how timers work. So I kind of just studied as much as I could about if statements and for statements and while statements, and I don't understand all of it, but I think I understand enough to make this happen. All right, guys, that's that. Thank you again for watching. I will be making another video very soon. I had a request on well, changing the scenes. So instead of having a scene start right away in VR, what we want to do is we want it to open up a screen that has a start button, and it's not VR, and then we hit the start button, and then it goes to a new scene, and that new scene is in VR. If we can do that, that will be awesome, and we will make sure that it, you know, uses a timer and all that stuff. So we're just going to keep building on what we have here, and you know, make all that just really work. I would have maybe added that to this, but we're already at what, 24 minutes? Yeah, so we can't take up all of your time all at once. Or can we? I mean, binge watching is kind of fun. That's why they call it binge watching. So anyway, like and subscribe if this helped you out, and if you're independently wealthy, or you know, just have lots and lots of money to throw around, join my Patreon. Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, guys, thank you again, and I will see you on the next video. And stop.